The secret I'm about to share with you today has transformed thousands of lives across the globe. It's not about complex investment strategies or grinding hustle culture. It's about something far more fundamental, the ancient understanding that wealth is not earned but remembered. What if everything you've been taught about wealth and abundance has been fundamentally backwards? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract prosperity effortlessly, while others struggle despite working twice as hard? The answer might be far simpler and more profound than you've ever imagined. Has this ever happened to you? You've followed all the conventional financial advice: work hard, save diligently, invest wisely, yet abundance still feels just beyond your grasp. There's a reason for this, and it's hiding in plain sight within ancient wisdom that has been deliberately obscured from mainstream understanding. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely revolutionize your relationship with money forever. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. The truth about abundance that financial institutions don't want you to discover is both elegantly simple and profoundly powerful. Abundance begins not in your hands, but in your heart. This isn't some vague metaphor. It's a practical reality that governs the flow of prosperity in your life. Ancient wisdom keepers across civilizations understood something modern. Financial education has deliberately forgotten. Money is merely a mirror reflecting the consciousness that beholds it. Your bank account, investments, and financial opportunities are external reflections of your internal state. Has this resonated with you yet? Have you noticed how your thoughts and feelings about money seem to manifest in your external reality? This isn't coincidence. It's a universal principle operating with mathematical precision. When you shift your consciousness around wealth, the mirror of your external reality must shift to reflect it. This isn't wishful thinking or manifesting, it's the fundamental operating system of reality itself. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is that it completely inverts our approach to creating abundance. Instead of chasing wealth through external actions alone, we begin by transforming our internal relationship with abundance. The outer actions then flow from this new state of consciousness. The ancients encoded this wisdom in parables and symbols so that only those ready to receive it could understand. They knew that prosperity isn't something you pursue, it's something you tune into, like adjusting a radio dial to receive a broadcast that's always been playing. As we explore this forgotten knowledge together, you'll discover how your relationship with even the smallest amounts of money shapes your relationship with all abundance. What's truly fascinating is how your relationship with even the smallest amount of money shapes your entire experience of abundance. Think about it. How do you feel when you find a single penny on the sidewalk? Do you bend down to pick it up with gratitude, or do you walk past, thinking it's not worth your time? This seemingly insignificant moment reveals everything about your prosperity consciousness. The universe is constantly watching how you treat the smallest blessings. When you dismiss small amounts as not enough, you're actually transmitting a powerful signal that ripples through the fabric of your reality. You're essentially telling the universe, I only value abundance when it comes in large quantities. If you've resonated with these ancient prosperity secrets, hit subscribe to continue your journey into abundance consciousness. I'm constantly unveiling more of these hidden wealth principles that have been deliberately kept from mainstream knowledge. But the hidden transformation occurs when you shift this pattern. The ancient wisdom keepers understood that treating even a copper coin with reverence signals your readiness to receive greater abundance. It's not about the monetary value, it's about the mindset behind your interaction with money in all its forms. I discovered This revelation during my own journey, when I was at my lowest financial point. Everything changed when I began honoring every dollar that came my way, treating each one as a sacred messenger of prosperity rather than not enough. The shift in my circumstances wasn't just noticeable, it was dramatic. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing a powerful practice that has helped thousands realign their energy field with prosperity's natural frequency. It's called the gratitude coin. Meditation and its simplicity belies its extraordinary impact. Here's the essence of this practice. Take any coin. It doesn't matter if it's of high or low denomination. Hold it in your left palm and with your right finger, slowly trace its circumference while breathing deeply. As you do this, remember every blessing this coin represents. Think about the hands that crafted it, the exchanges it enabled, the abundance it symbolizes in physical form. The hidden truth behind this practice is that you're not just focusing on a metal disc. You're actually feeling gratitude, filling the coin, like water filling a vessel. This seemingly simple act creates a profound energetic shift as your consciousness begins to resonate with abundance rather than scarcity. What makes this practice so transformative is that it works on both the visible and invisible levels of reality. On the surface, you're rewiring neural pathways that have been programmed to focus on lack. But on a deeper level, you're actually charging the coin with your conscious appreciation, turning it into a physical anchor for prosperity consciousness. The real revelation comes when you place this charged coin in a special place, letting it remind you that abundance flows toward appreciation. It becomes a physical touchstone that recalibrates your entire relationship with wealth. Behind the scenes, what's really happening is that you're not changing the metal. You're changing the consciousness you bring to it. And this internal shift becomes the catalyst for external changes that often appear miraculous to those still operating from conventional financial understanding. Many who've incorporated this practice into their daily routine report that opportunities begin appearing from unexpected directions. It's as if the universe suddenly recognizes them as someone who appreciates abundance in all its forms, not just the obvious ones. The journey toward true wealth begins with these seemingly small decisions. How you perceive and interact with money in its most modest appearances. The impact of this mindset reverberates through every financial transaction and opportunity that follows. If you're starting to sense the profound truth in what I'm sharing, write "abundance flows" in the comments below. I'll be responding personally to share additional insights with those who are truly resonating with this wisdom. Let's talk about one of the most counterintuitive concepts in the abundance mindset, the sacred power of emptiness. Most of us have been conditioned to fear empty spaces in our lives. An empty bank account, an empty calendar, an empty warehouse, these all trigger anxiety because we've been taught that emptiness equals lack or failure. But what if I told you that this perspective is completely inverted from the truth? The ancient wisdom keepers understood something profound that modern society has forgotten. Emptiness is not absence, but pure potential waiting to be filled. Think about this revelation for a moment. When you experience what appears to be a loss, whether it's the end of a revenue stream, the departure of a client, or even a financial setback, what's really happening behind the scenes is that life is clearing space for something new to enter. This perspective shift transforms the entire emotional landscape around transitions and temporary voids. I remember when I lost my biggest client several years ago. It felt devastating at the time, a gaping hole in my income that triggered all my scarcity fears. But that emptiness became the catalyst for a complete transformation of my business model, leading to opportunities I couldn't have imagined or accommodated if I had remained full with that client's demands. The merchant's empty warehouse parable illuminates this principle beautifully. Imagine a wealthy merchant standing in his warehouse after all his inventory has been seized by creditors. Where once towers of merchandise filled every corner, now only empty space remains. His initial reaction, like most of ours, is despair, but then comes the paradigm shift. The realization that when your warehouse is completely full, where would new opportunities go? How would you accommodate them? The emptiness that seemed like devastating loss suddenly reveals itself as the necessary precondition for receiving something new, potentially far greater than what was lost. This mindset breakthrough can transform how you perceive every aspect of your financial journey. What if the empty spaces in your life aren't problems to be fixed, but doorways through which unseen abundance is preparing to enter? What if the universe isn't punishing you with lack, but preparing you for expansion? The hidden truth is that emptiness creates space for entire caravans of possibility to arrive. But, and this is crucial, only if you're looking at that emptiness through the lens of potential rather than loss. Your perception literally determines what can manifest in that space. This reminds me of how quantum physics has discovered that the observer affects the observed. How you choose to perceive emptiness determines what that emptiness becomes. See it as devastating lack, and that's the reality you'll experience. See it as pregnant possibility, and you open yourself to receiving entirely new dimensions of abundance. What makes this principle so powerful is that it applies to every scale of experience, from the micro moments of your day to the macro chapters of your life. That open space in your schedule isn't nothing. It's a field of potential waiting for the right opportunity to fill it. That gap in your financial flow isn't missing money. It's the universe creating room for a new source of abundance. The journey toward mastering this principle involves practicing what I call the empty vessel visualization. This powerful mental reframing helps you transmute the anxiety of emptiness into the excitement of possibility. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you begin sensing the golden potential that emptiness contains. True wealth, it turns out, has nothing to do with how much you possess, and everything to do with your ability to perceive opportunity where others see only void. The wealthiest people throughout history weren't necessarily those who accumulated the most, but those who could recognize possibilities that were invisible to others. This perspective doesn't just transform your financial reality, it completely reshapes your emotional relationship with the inevitable empty spaces that life brings. Instead of fearing them, you begin welcoming them as necessary, clearing for your next level of abundance. If this principle about emptiness as sacred potential resonates with your experiences, type "I welcome space" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already witnessed this principle at work in your lives without fully recognizing its power. Now let me share a paradigm shift that completely revolutionized my understanding of wealth. A revelation that contradicts everything modern society teaches about prosperity. This insight came from an ancient parable about a peculiar beggar named Ashley, whose story illuminates perhaps the most profound secret of abundance. Imagine this. In the bustling streets of Alexandria, while wealthy merchants hurried by with furrowed brows, there sat a woman with literally nothing to her name, just an empty bowl and tattered clothes. Yet, remarkably, her eyes sparkled with more joy than those of the richest citizens. When a perplexed nobleman asked why she smiled despite having nothing, her response contained a wisdom that could transform your entire relationship with prosperity. "Nothing," she replied, gesturing to the sunrise. "I own the morning light that gilds these temples. The sweet breeze from the sea is my perfume. The songs of merchants and children are my orchestra." She lifted her humble clay bowl and said, "This is my treasury, forever empty and therefore eternally full of possibility." This mindset breakthrough reveals the counterintuitive truth that the wealthiest person isn't the one with the largest bank account, but but rather the one who needs the least to feel genuinely abundant. This isn't about glorifying poverty. It's about mastering the internal experience of wealth regardless of external circumstances. The transformation happens when you realize that prosperity is fundamentally a perspective, not a possession. Ashley didn't deny the utility of material resources, but she understood something far more powerful, that her sense of abundance didn't need to depend on external validation or acquisition. Think about your own experience for a moment. Have you ever attained something you desperately wanted, only to find that the satisfaction quickly faded and a new must-have took its place? This endless cycle of wanting creates a perpetual experience of scarcity, no matter how much you actually possess. The revelation is that true freedom comes from breaking this cycle at its source, your consciousness. This understanding doesn't mean abandoning ambition or goals. Instead, it creates the optimal foundation for genuine achievement by freeing you from the desperation that actually repels prosperity. When you feel abundant, regardless of circumstances, you operate from a center of power rather than need. And this energetic shift magnetizes opportunities that those trapped in scarcity consciousness simply cannot attract. One of the most powerful embodiment practices from this tradition involves literally crowning yourself with the awareness of your inherent abundance. The ancients taught a beautiful ritual where you create a crown from whatever nature provides around you, whether fallen leaves, twisted grass, or flower petals. Place it on your head and declare with full presence, "I am abundant because I choose to be." Subscribe now to access more of these transformative abundance teachings. Each video unveils another piece of this forgotten wisdom that can completely shift your relationship with prosperity. The brilliance of this practice lies in how it bypasses intellectual understanding and creates a full-body experience of abundance consciousness. As you wear this natural crown, you reclaim your sovereignty over your experience of wealth. The physical representation helps anchor the energetic reality that prosperity is your birthright, not something you need to chase or prove yourself worthy of receiving. The deeper work happens when you begin to inventory all the riches you possess that money cannot buy: your health, relationships, creativity, time, skills, memories, and experiences. This practice unveils the startling truth that even those society labels as financially poor often possess tremendous wealth in domains that truly matter for human fulfillment. What makes this particularly powerful is how it shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already present in abundance. This attention redirection literally alters your neurochemistry, activating gratitude pathways in the brain that have been scientifically proven to enhance well-being and performance across all domains of life. Behind the scenes, what's really happening is that you're dissolving the artificial barrier between yourself and the natural state of abundance that permeates reality. You're not creating wealth through this practice. You're remembering the wealth that was always there beneath the illusion of scarcity. If this perspective resonates with the truth you've sensed but perhaps struggled to articulate, type "crowned in abundance" in the comments. I'm curious how this ancient wisdom connects with your own intuitive understanding of prosperity. Now let's explore a fundamental principle of abundance that completely contradicts conventional financial wisdom. This insight comes from an ancient parable about a peculiar farmer who believed he could grow money like crops by burying coins in his field. Each night, under the silvery glow of the moon, this farmer would carefully plant his copper and silver pieces in the soil, marking each spot with a stone. Soon, he would whisper to himself, "My fortune will sprout like spring wheat." Yet despite his diligence, his buried treasure yielded nothing but corroded metal and frustration. The transformation in his understanding came through an encounter with a wise oracle who revealed a profound truth. Money doesn't grow by being buried. It multiplies through movement, like the dance of honeybees among flowers. To demonstrate this principle, she took a single silver coin and set it in motion, first giving it to a boy who bought bread, then to the baker who purchased honey, then to the beekeeper who bought sandals, and so on. By sunset, that single coin had created value tenfold its worth simply through circulation. This revelation illuminates one of the most significant mindset shifts in understanding prosperity. Money, like water, becomes stagnant and toxic when hoarded, but brings life wherever it flows freely. The journey of that coin through the village created a river of abundance that nourished the entire community. Consider the metaphysical principle at work here. Energy must flow to grow. This applies to everything in nature. Water that moves stays fresh while stagnant pools become poisonous. Blood circulating brings life. Blood congealing creates disease. The same natural law governs the flow of wealth. Behind the scenes of this principle is a profound truth about the actual nature of money itself. Currency was never designed to be an end goal or a treasure to accumulate and hide away. Its very purpose, its only real value, lies in its movement, in the experiences, goods, and services it helps exchange between people. The modern financial system often encourages us to measure wealth by what we've managed to stockpile and keep separate from circulation. But this defies the fundamental nature of abundance, which expands through generosity and contracts through hoarding. It's a complete inversion of natural law. One of the most powerful practices for aligning with this truth involves visualizing your money as drops in a mighty river rather than static possessions. The ancient practice begins by holding a coin in your cupped palms and feeling its potential energy, not as a dead object but as a living catalyst for creation. As you close your eyes, see this coin joining a vast river of abundance that flows through the entire world. Watch it creating value wherever it travels, funding a child's education, supporting an artist's work, nourishing a family, building something beautiful, before eventually returning to you multiplied. This visualization isn't just a pretty metaphor, it's reprogramming your relationship with wealth at the deepest level. You're shifting from the consciousness of accumulation to the consciousness of circulation. From seeing money as something to grip tightly to recognizing it as energy that needs to flow. What's fascinating is how this principle applies regardless of your current financial situation. Whether you're managing substantial investments or living paycheck to paycheck, your relationship with the flow of money, rather than the amount, determines your experience of abundance. The impact of this understanding ripples through every financial decision you make. Instead of asking, "How can I keep more money?" you begin asking, "How can I be a more effective conduit for wealth to flow through?" This subtle reframing creates an entirely different relationship with prosperity. When you trust the river of abundance and your place within it, you make decisions from a completely different consciousness than someone operating from scarcity. You become a channel rather than a container, experiencing the joy of circulation rather than the anxiety of accumulation. If you've noticed how money seems to flow more freely when you release your grip on it, type "River of Abundance" in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences with this principle in action. Let's explore one of the most counterintuitive wealth principles I've ever encountered, the paradox of generosity. This revelation comes from the story of a baker in ancient Persia, whose peculiar habit had the merchant guild whispering behind her back, while other bakers carefully counted their coins. This woman named Sarah had a practice that defied conventional financial wisdom. Every evening, she gave away her remaining bread to anyone who was hungry. Her neighboring merchants warned her, "You'll starve yourself into the grave." Yet something remarkable happened. The more bread she gave away freely, the more her prosperity seemed to multiply. Paying customers appeared in growing numbers at dawn. Her suppliers offered premium ingredients at half the usual price. Mysterious gifts of honey and exotic spices would appear on her doorstep. The hidden truth behind this paradox reveals a fundamental principle that most financial systems completely overlook. True generosity flows from abundance consciousness, not from calculated charity. This is the crucial distinction that transforms giving from a depletion to a multiplication. What's happening behind the scenes of this principle is a profound energetic reality. When you give from a place of genuine joy and expect nothing in return, you're signaling to the universe that you trust in the natural flow of abundance. You're demonstrating through action that you understand there's more than enough to go around. Contrast this with how most of us have been conditioned to give. We carefully calculate what we can afford to part with. We subconsciously track our generosity, expecting something in return, whether appreciation, recognition, tax benefits, or karmic brownie points. This is not true giving. It's a transaction, disguised as generosity. The ancient wisdom reveals that the universe responds not to the action of giving itself, but to the spirit behind it. This represents a complete paradigm shift in how we understand prosperity. The biochemistry of genuine giving actually creates a different energetic signature than giving with hidden expectations. One expands your prosperity field, the other constricts it. I witnessed this transformation in my own journey when I made a decision that seemed financially irrational at the time. During a period when my business was struggling, I felt a strong impulse to offer my most valuable program to several people who couldn't afford it. Every logical part of my brain objected. How could giving away my services possibly help my situation? Yet the impact was undeniable. Within weeks, unprecedented opportunities began appearing from directions I couldn't have anticipated. The mindset shift that occurred through that uncalculated generosity completely recalibrated my relationship with abundance. I wasn't giving to get, I was giving because I was already whole. One of the most illuminating metaphors from this tradition describes life as a great wheel of giving and receiving. Most try to control this wheel, carefully calculating what they give to maximize what they receive. But the true masters have learned to dance with the wheel, understanding that genuine generosity isn't a strategy for getting more. It's the natural expression of recognizing you already have enough. This revelation doesn't mean you should irresponsibly give away everything you own. The wisdom lies in discerning the difference between giving from abundance consciousness versus giving from duty, obligation, or strategic calculation. The energy behind your giving matters far more than the amount. The practice of giving from wholeness rather than lack creates a completely different energetic signature. When you give with pure joy, releasing all expectation of return, you align with the natural law of circulation that governs all prosperity. You become a clear channel for abundance rather than a clogged container, desperately trying to hold on to whatever it can grasp. What makes this principle so transformative is that it's accessible regardless of your current financial situation. You don't need to be wealthy to give from abundance consciousness. The baker in our story wasn't rich when she began giving away bread. Her external abundance followed. Her internal recognition that she was already whole. This understanding completely revolutionizes how we approach wealth creation. Instead of seeing giving as something you do after you've accumulated enough, you recognize that uncalculated generosity is actually a catalyst for prosperity rather than a result of it. The sequence matters. Abundance flows through those who give from fullness, not those who give to fill an emptiness. If you've experienced this paradox of generosity in your own life, where giving freely somehow created more abundance rather than less, share your story by commenting "Generosity multiplies" below. These experiences confirm what the ancient wisdom keepers have always known. In the great marketplace of life, what we circulate with joy returns multiplied by the mysterious mathematics of the heart. Now, let me share a profound insight that completely transformed my understanding of why some people seem to struggle with wealth despite doing everything right. This revelation comes from observing a peculiar pattern in how abundance behaves when we approach it with fear versus relaxed openness. Have you ever noticed how cats respond when you chase them? They run away. Yet when you sit quietly, not pursuing them at all, they often come over to investigate. This seemingly simple observation contains one of the most powerful metaphysical principles governing prosperity. Whatever you clutch in fear will always find a way to escape. This paradox explains why so many people experience what I call the prosperity panic cycle. They work hard to accumulate wealth, but their underlying anxiety about losing it creates an energetic grip so tight that money literally finds pathways to leave their experience. The universe responds not to our words or even our actions, but to the energy signature we're emitting. The transformation begins when we recognize that fear and wealth cannot coexist in the same energetic space. It's not that the universe is punishing your anxiety. It's simply responding to the constriction that fear creates in your energy field. When you're gripping tightly to every dollar out of worry about not having enough, you're actually broadcasting a frequency of scarcity that repels rather than attracts. I witnessed this principle in action through the journey of a successful entrepreneur friend who built a seven-figure business but lived in constant anxiety about losing everything. Despite intelligent financial decisions and strategic planning, she experienced mysterious losses, unexpected expenses, and opportunities that dissolved at the last minute. Her relationship with wealth was fundamentally based in fear, and the universe was responding accordingly. The breakthrough came when she learned to hold her prosperity differently, not with the white-knuckled grip of anxiety, but with the open-handed trust of someone who understands abundance's natural flow. This energetic shift changed everything, not because she was doing anything differently in her business, but because she was being different in her relationship with wealth. One of the most powerful practices for embodying this principle is what the ancient wisdom keepers called the flute of fortune meditation. This deceptively simple exercise begins by placing a coin in your open palm and observing your natural response. Most people instinctively curl their fingers around it, physically manifesting the energetic grasping we do with all forms of prosperity. As you sit with the coin, bring your awareness to how worry naturally tightens your grip. Feel the tension in your hand, your arm, your shoulder, even your jaw and brow. This physical tension perfectly mirrors the energetic constriction that blocks abundance at the subtle level. Now comes the alchemical moment. Gradually relax your hand, allowing your palm to open fully while the coin rests freely upon it. Notice the vulnerability this creates, the fear that perhaps the coin will fall if you don't control it. This precise feeling, this edge between trust and anxiety, is where the real inner work of prosperity consciousness happens. As your hand relaxes completely, experience how different it feels to hold something without fear. This seemingly simple shift in your physical body creates a corresponding shift in your energy field. You're literally rewiring your nervous system to create a new relationship with abundance, one based in trust rather than anxiety. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it works directly with the subtle energetic patterns that govern prosperity, rather than just changing your thoughts or behaviors. You're addressing the causal level of abundance rather than just the symptomatic level. Behind the scenes of this practice is a profound metaphysical principle. Prosperity isn't something you possess through control. It's something you allow through trust. When you relax your grip, both literally and figuratively, You create the energetic space for abundance to flow naturally toward you, just as a cat might wander over when you're no longer chasing it. The invitation here is to notice all the ways you might be unconsciously strangling your prosperity through fear-based control. Where are you gripping too tightly? Where is anxiety creating constriction in your financial experience? The relaxation of that grip doesn't mean abandoning wise stewardship. It means performing that stewardship from a fundamentally different energy signature. If you've noticed how trying to control money often leads to its departure, while relaxing about it sometimes brings unexpected abundance, drop a "releasing the grip" comment below. I'd love to hear about the moments when you've experienced this counterintuitive principle in action. Let me share with you one of the most profound secrets the ancient wisdom keepers understood about manifestation. A secret so powerful, yet so subtle, that most people overlook it entirely. This revelation centers on the extraordinary power of the stories we tell ourselves about wealth and how these narratives literally create our financial reality. Imagine a storyteller in ancient Alexandria named Joshua, whose tales had a mysterious effect on his listeners. Unlike other storytellers who spun yarns about heroes and monsters, Joshua told stories about the invisible threads of abundance that wove through all of life. What was remarkable wasn't just the content of his stories, but what happened to those who listened. Merchants found rare goods mysteriously appearing in their shops. Farmers' crops yielded double harvests. Even the poorest listeners discovered unexpected treasures in unlikely places. The transformation wasn't random. It followed a precise pattern. Those who absorbed stories of abundance experienced abundance. Those who dwelled in tales of lack manifested exactly that reality. This isn't metaphorical. It's a fundamental principle of consciousness that modern quantum physics is only beginning to validate. The universe speaks in stories. Tell yourself a tale of lack, and lack becomes your reality. Speak of abundance, and abundance cannot help but answer. Every person walks within the narrative they've accepted about their worthiness and relationship with prosperity. I witnessed this principle dramatically illustrated when I worked with two entrepreneurs starting nearly identical businesses with similar resources and market opportunities. The first constantly rehearsed stories of market saturation, competition, and potential failure. The second told stories of perfect timing, abundant opportunity, and inevitable success. Within a year, their businesses perfectly mirrored their narratives despite facing the same external circumstances. What's happening behind the scenes is that your words aren't merely descriptive, they're creative. They function as literal spells casting your future experience. Your thoughts aren't just passive observations. They're prophecies foretelling what will manifest. Your beliefs aren't just opinions. They form the very loom upon which the universe weaves your experience of abundance. The revelation here is that we've been taught to believe our stories reflect reality, when in fact they create it. This completely inverts the conventional understanding of cause and effect. Most people think circumstances dictate their story, but the deeper truth is that your story dictates your circumstances. This understanding explains why people in identical financial situations can experience completely different trajectories. It's not their external resources that determine their outcomes, but the internal narrative they're living within. Two people can each have $10,000 in savings, but the one who tells themselves, "This is the beginning of my wealth," versus "This isn't nearly enough," will experience entirely different financial futures. The transformative practice here involves becoming a conscious author of your prosperity story, rather than an unconscious character in a narrative you've absorbed from family, culture, or past experiences. This isn't about positive thinking or affirmations. It's about recognizing the causal power of the stories you embody, Try this experiment. Notice the tale you currently tell about your financial life. Is it a story of struggle, scarcity, and never enough? Or is it a narrative of opportunity, expansion, and natural abundance? Pay attention to the specific language you use when thinking or talking about money. These aren't just words. They're the architecture of your financial future. The alchemical shift happens when you begin intentionally weaving a new tale, not as wishful thinking, but as a conscious act of creation. This isn't about denying current circumstances, but about changing the meaning and trajectory you assign to them. A setback becomes clearing space for something better, rather than proof that I always struggle. An unexpected expense becomes evidence that I can handle whatever comes, rather than confirmation that I can never get ahead. What makes this principle so empowering is that your narrative is the one aspect of wealth creation that you have complete control over, regardless of external circumstances. No one can dictate the story you tell yourself about your relationship with abundance. This makes it the perfect leverage point for transformation. If you've noticed how your financial reality seems to follow the storylines you've been telling yourself, share your insight by commenting, "Rewriting my story," below. I'm curious how many of you have already experienced the manifestation power of your prosperity narratives, even before understanding the mechanism behind it. Let me share with you a perspective that completely inverts our conventional understanding of wealth, an insight I discovered in the most unexpected place. This revelation comes from a hermit named Nicole, who lived high in the mist-shrouded peaks of Tibet, owning nothing but a wooden bowl and a patched robe. Yet her presence radiated such abundance that even the wild mountain goats would leave offerings of wool at her cave entrance. What fascinates me about Nicole's story is how it challenges our fundamental assumption that abundance is something we accumulate rather than something we recognize. While wealthy merchants would climb treacherous paths to seek her wisdom, they were bewildered to find someone who possessed nothing, yet emanated a sense of prosperity far greater than their own. "Teach me," demanded one such merchant who had lost his fortune to pirates, dropping a pouch of his remaining gold at her feet. "I'll pay whatever you ask." Nicole's response contained a paradigm shift that could transform your entire relationship with wealth. She simply picked up a smooth riverstone, held it to her ear as if listening to its secrets, and said, "Interesting. This stone says you're both the wealthiest and poorest person it's ever met." When the merchant protested that he had lost everything, she gestured to the sunset painting the peaks in gold and asked, "Everything? Seems to me you're standing in the midst of infinite wealth. You just can't recognize it because you're hypnotized by what you think wealth looks like." This illuminates a profound blindness most of us suffer from: wealth blindness. We've been conditioned to recognize abundance only in specific forms: numbers in accounts, property deeds, investment portfolios, while remaining completely oblivious to the vast prosperity that surrounds us in every moment. The revelation here isn't that material resources are unimportant. It's that true prosperity begins with recognizing the abundance that already exists, rather than fixating on what's missing. This recognition creates the foundation for material wealth to flow toward you, rather than constantly eluding your grasp. I experienced this transformation personally during a period of financial uncertainty. Despite legitimate concerns about bills and responsibilities, I began a daily practice of identifying forms of wealth I'd been taking for granted. From the oxygen freely available to my lungs to the miraculous technology connecting me to global knowledge, something extraordinary happened. The more I recognized these overlooked treasures, the more material opportunities began appearing in my experience. Behind the scenes of this principle is a profound energetic reality. What you appreciate appreciates. Your recognition of abundance literally magnetizes more of it into your field. But the even deeper truth is that prosperity was never about acquiring more. It was about removing the perceptual filters that prevented you from experiencing the wealth already present. One of the most powerful practices from this tradition involves using an empty bowl as a tool for consciousness transformation. This meditation begins by holding an empty bowl with both hands and feeling its potential to receive anything. As you sit with the bowl, observe how its emptiness creates the very space that allows for fullness. The alchemical moment in this practice comes with the realization: you are the bowl, not its contents. Your essential nature is the spacious awareness that can hold any experience, wealth or scarcity, success or failure, without being defined by it. This perspective shift creates an unshakable foundation for prosperity that isn't dependent on external circumstances. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it works directly with your perception rather than trying to manipulate external conditions. You're addressing the root cause of scarcity, the consciousness that creates it, rather than merely treating its symptoms. When you recognize that you are the space in which all experiences of abundance or lack appear, you reclaim your power to choose which reality you inhabit. The bowl of your consciousness can be filled with stories of limitation or possibilities of prosperity, and that choice shapes what manifests in your material experience. This understanding doesn't mean abandoning practical financial wisdom. Nicole's teaching wasn't about renouncing the world or ignoring material needs. It was about establishing the perceptual foundation that allows material abundance to flow naturally, rather than being constantly obstructed by your own wealth blindness. The journey toward true abundance begins with a simple question: what wealth am I failing to recognize in this moment? What prosperity surrounds me that I've been trained to overlook? The answers might surprise you, and in that surprise lies the seed of genuine transformation. If this perspective on wealth has opened your eyes to abundance you've been overlooking in your own life, type "I see the wealth" in the comments. I'm curious what forms of prosperity you might suddenly recognize that have been hiding in plain sight all along. Now let me share a revelation about manifestation that completely transformed my understanding of why some people seem to effortlessly attract prosperity while others work twice as hard with minimal results. This insight comes from an ancient parable about two fishers in Phoenicia that illuminates a fundamental principle of abundance. Imagine a fisherman named Robert, who dragged massive nets across the Mediterranean waters every dawn, believing that covering more area meant greater fortune. Despite his exhausting efforts, his catches grew smaller and less valuable. Meanwhile, an elderly fisherwoman used nothing but a slender silk net decorated with copper bells. She would sit in her tiny boat, close her eyes in meditation, and cast her net just once, always returning with exactly what the market needed that day. This contrast reveals a profound truth about how the universe responds to our intentions. It delivers not to those who cast the widest nets of desperate effort, but to those who focus their desires with unwavering clarity. This principle operates behind virtually every miraculous manifestation you've witnessed or experienced. The fisherman approached Robert one morning after another disappointing catch and said something that contained the essence of manifestation wisdom. When you cast your net everywhere, you tell the sea you expect nothing in particular. But when you cast with focused intention, you tell the sea exactly what you seek. She demonstrated by closing her eyes, holding her net, and whispering, "Today the temple needs 3 golden base for their ceremony." With a graceful arc, she cast her small net, waited exactly 7 breaths, then pulled it in to reveal precisely 3 golden base. The revelation here isn't just about fishing. It's about the fundamental nature of how intentions manifest in our reality. Most of us have been taught that more effort equals better results, that casting wider nets will catch more fish. But this approach broadcasts a scattered energy that the universe struggles to respond to coherently. It's like shouting 100 different requests simultaneously and wondering why none are fulfilled completely. I witnessed this principle dramatically when two entrepreneurs in my mentorship program took radically different approaches to growing their businesses. One pursued every opportunity, diversified in multiple directions, and constantly shifted focus based on market trends. The other identified precisely what she wanted to create and maintained unwavering focus despite tempting distractions. Within a year, the second entrepreneur had built a thriving business aligned perfectly with her vision, while the first was exhausted and fragmented, with minimal results despite working twice as hard. The ancient practice for embodying this wisdom begins with what the wisdom keepers called the net of intention. Sit quietly and imagine holding a net of light in your hands. Feel its weight and texture. Then state clearly and precisely what you seek to catch in life's waters. Not vague wishes like more money or better opportunities, but specific intentions that resonate with your soul's purpose. The critical moment in this practice comes when you cast your net of intention. This isn't a desperate throw hoping something might come back. It's a movement of absolute certainty, as if the fulfillment of your intention is already guaranteed, merely awaiting your signal to begin its journey toward you. After casting, wait 7 breaths, feeling your desire drawing closer with each inhale and exhale. This pause creates the energetic space for your intention to begin materializing. Many people sabotage their manifestations by immediately shifting focus after setting an intention, never allowing the universe time to respond. The final step is perhaps the most challenging yet crucial. Release all doubt about the perfect timing of your intention's arrival. This doesn't mean passive waiting. You'll still take inspired action, but those actions flow from certainty rather than anxiety. What makes this approach so powerful is that it aligns your energy with universal laws of manifestation. When you focus with clarity, the universe doesn't need to interpret your scattered signals. It receives a clear broadcast it can respond to directly. Like fish drawn to a certain sound, abundance responds to the clear ring of conscious purpose. The journey toward mastering this principle involves practicing discernment about where to cast your net. Rather than pursuing every opportunity that arises, you learn to recognize which waters hold the precise abundance you're calling forth. This focused approach conserves your energy while dramatically increasing your results. If you've experienced moments where focusing your intention with clarity brought results that previous scattered efforts couldn't achieve, share your insight by typing "focused intention" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already witnessed this principle at work in your own prosperity journey. Let me share a principle of wealth manifestation that operates with such precision it almost seems mystical. Yet it follows natural laws as reliable as gravity. This insight comes from an ancient tradition where a sacred lake existed, a lake so still it was said to reflect not just faces, but souls. Here lived a merchant named Elizabeth, renowned throughout the provinces for her uncanny ability to transform failing businesses into thriving enterprises. Her method was unlike anything conventional financial wisdom would suggest. Instead of studying ledgers and market trends, Elizabeth would take troubled shopkeepers to this mirror lake before dawn. There, as morning light painted the waters gold, she would ask them a seemingly simple question. "What do you see when you look at your reflection?" Their answers revealed everything. "I see someone who's always struggling," or "I see someone who doesn't deserve wealth." And remarkably, as they spoke these words, their reflections would indeed appear haggard and poor, regardless of their actual appearance. This phenomenon reveals a profound truth about prosperity. Your daily thoughts about wealth aren't just passive observations. They're like pebbles dropped into the waters of manifestation, creating ripples that either magnify or diminish your prosperity. Every belief you hold about money casts either shadow or light upon the waters of your financial reality. The revelation here is that your inner vision of yourself isn't just metaphorically connected to your outer circumstances, it's causally connected. The relationship is as direct as the link between a seed and the plant it produces. Your self-image in relation to abundance literally programs the subconscious patterns that attract or repel prosperity in your external experience. To demonstrate this principle, Elizabeth once brought twin sisters to the lake. Though identical in appearance, their reflections appeared dramatically different. One saw herself crowned with success and abundance, while the other saw only struggle and lack. The astonishing part: within a year, their outer lives perfectly matched their lake reflections, despite starting from identical circumstances. I witnessed a similar phenomenon when working with two colleagues who launched similar businesses with nearly identical resources, connections, and market opportunities. The decisive factor in their dramatically different outcomes wasn't strategy or execution. It was the inner image each held of themselves in relation to success. One saw himself as always the underdog, fighting uphill, while the other perceived herself as naturally aligned with opportunity and expansion. Within 18 months, their external realities had perfectly conformed to these inner blueprints. This wasn't coincidence or self-fulfilling prophecy in the conventional sense. It was the precise operation of a manifestation principle that shapes reality from the inside out. The transformation begins with a practice the ancients called the mirror of abundance. Find a mirror in the hour before dawn, light a single candle on either side, and gaze softly at your reflection. Watch closely how your image subtly shifts as you alternate between prosperous and limiting thoughts. The fluctuations you observe aren't optical illusions, they're energetic signatures, becoming visible. The breakthrough moment comes when you learn to hold the prosperity vision steady, refusing to let it dissolve back into limitation. This isn't about superficial positive thinking or temporary emotional states. It's about consciously programming the blueprint that your subconscious mind and energy field will inevitably manifest. What makes this practice so powerful is that it works directly with the causal level of abundance, rather than just manipulating external conditions. You're addressing the source code of your prosperity rather than merely adjusting its surface expressions. Behind the scenes of this phenomenon is a fundamental principle of consciousness. Energy follows attention. Whatever aspect of yourself you focus on expands. Whatever vision of yourself you consistently hold becomes the template that reality must eventually match. This isn't magical thinking, it's the precise mechanics of how consciousness creates experience. The journey toward mastering this principle involves becoming acutely aware of the unconscious wealth reflection you're holding moment by moment. Most people are completely unaware of the inner image they're projecting onto the waters of manifestation. They wonder why their financial circumstances remain stubbornly the same, while unknowingly projecting the exact same blueprint day after day. When you begin consciously crafting your inner prosperity image and holding it steady regardless of temporary external conditions, you initiate a recalibration process that will eventually reshape your entire financial reality. The key is persistence, continuing to hold the prosperity vision even when current circumstances contradict it. This understanding completely inverts conventional wisdom about cause and effect. Most people believe they'll change their self-image when their circumstances improve. The mirror lake reveals the opposite truth. Your circumstances will transform when you consistently hold a new vision of yourself in relation to abundance. If you've experienced moments where your life seemed to mysteriously align with how you deeply saw yourself, whether positively or negatively, share your insight by commenting "Mirror Principle" below. These experiences aren't coincidences, they're demonstrations of the precise way consciousness shapes reality. Let me share a remarkable principle about prosperity that few understand yet profoundly affects everything you create. Whether that's a business, relationship, creative project, or financial investment. This insight comes from an unusual blacksmith named John who lived in ancient Damascus and transformed metallurgy into a form of energy alchemy. Unlike other blacksmiths who hammered their steel into submission with grunts and curses, John sang to his metals as if they were timid creatures needing encouragement. His forge sat at the edge of the metalworkers' district, marked by wind chimes he'd crafted from scraps of precious metals. Chimes that played songs, drawing merchants from distant lands. What puzzled these merchants was why John's blades cost twice what others charged, yet caravan masters insisted only his weapons would do. "What magic do you work into the steel?" a wealthy trader once asked. John's response revealed a universal principle that applies to every aspect of prosperity creation. "No magic," he replied, holding a glowing sword blade to the light. "Only joy. Metal, like money, is merely frozen energy. It remembers the state of the one who shapes it." To demonstrate this revelation, John hammered two identical pieces of steel, one while frowning in concentration, the other while singing his characteristic melodies. "See how differently they shine," he asked, showing how the joyfully forged metal gleamed with an inner light, while the other remained dull despite its perfect shape. This isn't metaphorical. It's a literal energetic principle that quantum physics is only beginning to validate. Everything we create carries the vibration we embed within it during its creation. The consciousness you bring to your work becomes inseparably fused with what you produce. This explains why some businesses, investments, or creative projects seem mysteriously blessed with prosperity, while others struggle despite similar external factors. I witnessed this transformation firsthand when consulting for two retail shops in the same mall, selling similar products at similar price points. The first owner approached her business with constant stress, worry, and resentment. The second infused every aspect of her operation with genuine appreciation and joy. Within months, the second shop was drawing triple the foot traffic and sales, despite no significant differences in merchandise, location, or marketing. Behind the scenes, customers were unconsciously responding to the energetic signature embedded in each environment. They couldn't articulate why one shop felt inviting while the other felt subtly draining, but their buying decisions clearly reflected this unseen difference. The ancient practice for embodying this principle begins with a simple ritual before any task. Ring a bell or strike a pure tone to set clear intention. This seemingly small act creates an energetic reset that allows you to approach your work from elevated consciousness rather than habitual stress. As you engage with your work, the alchemical element comes through humming or singing while creating. Even if others think it's strange, this isn't about entertainment or distraction, but about literally embedding harmonic frequencies into what you're building. Sound creates geometric patterns in physical matter, as demonstrated in cymatics research. And your voice becomes a tool for encoding specific energetic signatures into your creations. The most powerful aspect of this practice involves consciously directing joy from your heart into whatever you're touching, whether that's preparing a presentation, creating content, developing a product, or managing investments. Imagine your positive energy being stored in everything you create, like charging a battery that will later discharge that same energy to everyone who encounters it. This understanding explains why some entrepreneurs can launch successful ventures repeatedly, while others struggle despite following identical strategies. It's not just their actions, but the consciousness they embed in those actions that determines the energetic signature and therefore the prosperity potential of what they create. What makes this principle so revolutionary is that it operates regardless of your external circumstances or resources. Even in challenging situations, you retain complete sovereignty over the energetic quality you infuse into your creations. This makes it an incredibly powerful leverage point for transformation. The journey toward mastering this principle involves becoming increasingly aware of your internal state while creating. Most people remain completely unconscious of the energy they're embedding in their work, then wonder why it doesn't attract the prosperity they desire. By bringing this process into awareness, you gain the ability to consciously shape the energetic signature of everything you produce. This understanding doesn't replace practical knowledge or skills, but rather multiplies their effectiveness. John's blades weren't just infused with joy, they were also crafted with technical mastery. The combination created objects of exceptional value that commanded premium prices and developed legendary reputations. If you've noticed how projects or creations you approached with genuine joy seem to attract unusual success or recognition, share your experience by typing "joy infusion" in the comments. These weren't coincidences, but demonstrations of the precise way consciousness shapes material reality through the medium of your creative energy. Now, let me reveal a profound truth about manifestation that completely transforms our relationship with the future. A revelation that liberates us from feeling trapped by circumstances while empowering us to actively shape what's coming. This wisdom comes from an extraordinary fortune teller named Heather in ancient Alexandria, whose predictions had an unsettling way of coming true, until she discovered their true power lay not in seeing the future, but in shaping it. Imagine a tent of purple silk where merchants and traders would come seeking glimpses of their financial destinies. Using cards painted with gold leaf and a bowl of water touched by moonlight, Heather would reveal visions of what awaited them. But she began noticing a peculiar pattern. Those she told would prosper indeed found fortune, while those she warned of hardship invariably faced decline, regardless of their current circumstances or actions. This pattern troubled her deeply until an encounter with an enigmatic spice merchant changed everything. As she gazed into her bowl for his reading, she saw only shadows suggesting failure, but something made her pause before speaking doom. "What if," she wondered aloud, "I told you a different story?" In that pivotal moment, she described two possible futures for his venture, one of failure, one of success. As she spoke each version, something extraordinary happened. The water in her bowl shifted, reflecting exactly what she described. The merchant watched in amazement as his own expression transformed with each telling, mirroring the alternate realities being woven through her words. This revelation contains the essence of a breakthrough understanding. Prophecy is not a chain that binds us to predetermined outcomes, but a key that unlocks potential futures. The profound insight is that we don't see what must be, but what could be. And in the telling, we plant seeds in the soil of expectation that grow into our experienced reality. I witnessed this principle dramatically, illustrated when working with two entrepreneurs facing nearly identical business challenges. The first consulted financial forecasters who predicted difficult times ahead based on market trends. He internalized this narrative completely, making decisions from a place of anticipated scarcity. The second refused to accept limiting predictions and consciously crafted an alternative future story focused on unexpected opportunities and resilient growth. Within months, their businesses reflected the prophecies they had embraced. Not because the predictions were inherently accurate, but because each entrepreneur had planted different seeds of manifestation through the futures they accepted as possible. The transformation happens when you recognize that you are not merely a reader of destinies, but a writer of them. This isn't wishful thinking or denial of challenges. It's a profound reclaiming of your creative relationship with the future. You're not ignoring reality, you're participating in its creation at the causal level of consciousness. The ancient practice for embodying this wisdom involves sitting before a bowl of still water at twilight, that magical time when boundaries between what is and what could be grow thin. As you gaze at your reflection, speak aloud two possible futures for any situation you're facing. One might be the conventional expectation based on current circumstances, while the other represents an alternate possibility that calls to your heart. The alchemical moment in this practice comes when you notice how your expression changes with each telling. Watch your eyes, the set of your mouth, the tension in your face. Your body knows which future resonates with your deepest truth. The future that makes your eyes brighten and your face relax is revealing the path that aligns with your soul's knowing. What makes this practice so powerful is that it bypasses intellectual analysis and connects directly with the body's wisdom. Your physical response becomes a compass pointing toward the future that holds your greatest flourishing, and that recognition itself begins magnetizing that reality into your experience. Behind the scenes of this principle is a fundamental truth about the nature of time and possibility. The future exists as a field of potentials rather than a fixed line. By consciously engaging with alternative futures, you're not just predicting outcomes, you're activating specific probability waves and collapsing others through the observer effect that quantum physics has validated. The journey toward mastering this principle involves becoming increasingly discerning about which prophecies you allow into your consciousness. Every prediction, forecast, or projection you accept plants seeds in your subconscious that begin growing immediately. This doesn't mean rejecting all challenging information, but rather maintaining sovereignty over how you metabolize and relate to it. When you understand that you're actively participating in writing your destiny rather than passively reading a predetermined script, your relationship with the future fundamentally transforms. You move from anxiety about what might happen to creative engagement with what you're calling forth. If you've experienced moments where rejecting a limiting prediction and consciously crafting an alternative possibility seem to shift your reality in unexpected ways, share your story by commenting "Destiny Writer" below. These weren't coincidences, but demonstrations of your innate power to participate in creating your future, rather than just anticipating it. Let me share a profound insight about prosperity that completely transforms how we experience our relationship with money on a daily basis. This revelation comes from an unusual grain merchant named Jason, who worked in the bustling granaries of ancient Memphis, where Egypt's wealth flowed like golden rivers through measuring scales. What made Jason remarkable wasn't his wealth or business strategy, but something far more subtle yet powerful: the way he transformed the mundane act of weighing grain into a sacred dance of celebration. While other merchants grimly counted measures with stern faces, treating commerce as a serious burden, Jason would spin each grain scoop like a dancer with a tambourine, creating rhythmic patterns that mesmerized everyone around him. "Has the sun addled your mind?" asked a fellow merchant, watching Jason twirl between transactions. "This is serious business, not some festival dance." Jason's response contained a wisdom that could revolutionize your entire relationship with money. "But have you noticed," he replied, executing a perfect pivot while pouring grain, "how the measures flow more generously when treated as guests at a feast rather than prisoners in a tomb?" This insight illuminates a fundamental principle of prosperity that most financial systems completely overlook. Wealth, like music, moves in natural cycles and rhythms. When you fight against this flow, it creates resistance and constriction. But when you align with prosperity's inherent rhythm, abundance begins flowing with remarkable ease. To demonstrate this principle, Jason weighed two identical portions of grain, one with stern concentration, the other with joyful movement. Mysteriously, the celebratory measuring always yielded slightly more abundance, as if the grain itself expanded in response to his joy. Soon, farmers would wait in longer lines, just to sell their harvest through his dancing scales, claiming their crops brought better prices when blessed by his rhythmic transactions. I witnessed this transformation personally when I began applying this wisdom to my own financial activities. What had once been anxiety-producing experiences, paying bills, calculating expenses, reviewing investments, became opportunities for rhythmic celebration. The shift wasn't just psychological, it created tangible changes in my financial flow. Unexpected opportunities, perfect timing, and seamless transactions became my new normal. Behind the scenes of this principle is a profound energetic reality. Money responds to the emotional and energetic signature we bring to our interactions with it. Most people approach financial activities with tension, worry, or grim determination, never realizing they're creating resistance in the very flow they're trying to enhance. The ancient practice for embodying this wisdom begins by consciously transforming how you handle money physically. Instead of rigid, tense movements when counting currency or calculating figures, intentionally move your hands in circles, creating a flowing, rhythmic experience. This isn't just symbolic. It creates a neurological shift that affects your entire nervous system and energy field. The alchemical element in this practice involves beginning each financial transaction by metaphorically or literally striking a small bell. This seemingly simple act creates a reset in your consciousness, transforming an ordinary exchange into a sacred ceremony. As you handle money, find the natural rhythm in every interaction, allowing your movements to flow like a dance rather than a mechanical process. Perhaps most revolutionary is approaching each transaction as if you're at a grateful harvest festival rather than engaging in a burdensome necessity. This consciousness shift completely transforms the energy you bring to your financial exchanges. And that transformation magnetizes very different experiences in return. What makes this practice so powerful is that it works at multiple levels simultaneously. Physically, it releases tension that blocks energy flow. Emotionally, it transforms anxiety into appreciation. Energetically, it aligns your field with prosperity's natural rhythm rather than fighting against it. The journey toward mastering this principle involves thanking each coin or dollar as it passes through your hands, whether it's coming or going. This gratitude creates an energetic signature that money naturally responds to, just as plants bend towards sunlight. You're creating a field where prosperity feels welcomed rather than clutched at. This understanding doesn't replace practical financial knowledge, but rather enhances its effectiveness. Jason's granary didn't succeed through dance alone. He combined joyful movement with sound business practices. The integration created results that neither approach could achieve independently. If you've noticed how money seems to flow more smoothly when you approach it with lightness and appreciation rather than heaviness and worry, share your experience by typing "dancing with abundance" in the comments. These moments weren't coincidences, but glimpses of a fundamental principle that governs all prosperity. Let me share a revelation about prosperity that completely transforms not just what you do, but how you do it. A principle that explains why some people magnetize extraordinary abundance through seemingly ordinary work. This insight comes from a lighthouse keeper named Tiffany, who lived along the treacherous coastline of ancient Phoenicia. Unlike other beacon tenders who approached their work as mere duty, Tiffany related to her lighthouse as if it were a living temple. Each evening, as she climbed the tower's spiral steps, she would speak lovingly to her flame. "Guide them home, my bright one," she would whisper, anointing the base of the flame with precious oils. "Keep them safe in your radiant embrace." What's fascinating is that the harbor master began noticing a peculiar pattern. The wealthiest trading ships seemed mysteriously drawn to Tiffany's light, like moths to flame, while other lighthouses attracted mainly fishing boats. Even during violent storms that extinguished other beacons, her flame burned with unwavering brilliance. When asked how she commanded such loyalty from the sea's bounty, Tiffany smiled and shared a wisdom that reverberates through every dimension of prosperity. "I don't command anything. I simply love this light as I would a child, and like a child given pure love, it grows in power beyond what mere duty could inspire." To demonstrate this principle, she lit 2 identical oil lamps, one with mechanical precision, the other with gentle reverence. Though physically identical, the lamp lit with love cast noticeably further light. This wasn't mystical. It was a demonstration of how consciousness directly impacts physical reality. This revelation illuminates why 2 people can perform identical actions yet experience dramatically different results. The decisive factor isn't what you do, but the quality of presence you bring to it. True service isn't about the action itself, but the love infused within it. This principle operates whether you're building a business, creating content, serving clients, or managing investments. I witnessed this transformation in my own journey when facing burnout in my career. Despite following all the right strategies and working diligently, prosperity seemed to require exhausting effort. The breakthrough came when I shifted my focus from what I was doing to how I was doing it, approaching each task not as an obligation, but as an expression of genuine care. This consciousness shift created a remarkable ripple effect. Clients I'd been pursuing with strategic persistence suddenly appeared effortlessly. Projects that had felt draining became energizing. Resources I'd been struggling to secure manifested through unexpected channels. Nothing in my external actions had changed substantially, but the energy signature behind those actions had transformed completely. Behind the scenes of this principle is a profound metaphysical truth. Everything in creation responds to the quality of consciousness directing it. Your projects, investments, and endeavors are not just physical undertakings. They're living fields of energy that expand or contract in direct response to the consciousness you pour into them. The ancient practice for embodying this wisdom begins by choosing any object or task that serves others. Whether that's preparing a presentation, writing content, designing a product, or planning a strategy. The alchemical shift happens when you approach this task as if greeting a beloved friend rather than completing a necessary obligation. As you engage with your chosen focus, speak words of genuine appreciation, either aloud or silently. This isn't empty affirmation, but rather conscious recognition of the service this work provides. Add one small element of beauty beyond necessity, something that serves no practical purpose but infuses your creation with the signature of care. What makes this practice so transformative is that it fundamentally alters the energetic signature you embed in everything you create. Like Tiffany's lighthouse flame that drew the richest ships, your work begins attracting prosperity, not through strategic manipulation, but through authentic resonance with the consciousness you've infused within it. The journey toward mastering this principle involves recognizing that whatever lighthouse you tend, whether a creative project, business venture, or service offering, its beam will reach exactly as far as the love you pour into it. This isn't sentimentality, but rather a precise energetic equation that determines the magnetic power of everything you create. This understanding doesn't replace skill or strategy, but it multiplies their effectiveness exponentially. Tiffany's lighthouse succeeded not just through loving attention, but through the integration of that consciousness with technical excellence. The combination created results neither approach could achieve alone. If you've experienced moments where approaching your work with genuine care rather than obligatory effort seemed to magnetically attract unexpected prosperity, share your insight by typing "lighthouse" erect in the comments. These weren't coincidences, but glimpses of a fundamental principle governing the relationship between consciousness and abundance. Now, let me reveal a principle of prosperity, so subtle yet powerful that it can transform any environment, from a struggling business to a stagnant financial situation, virtually overnight. This revelation comes from a peculiar scholar named Justin, who traveled between cities with only a reed pen and empty notebooks, making a most unusual discovery through his journeys. Unlike other scholars who filled chapters with existing knowledge, Justin's practice was simply to sit in different places and write what he observed about their nature. As he reviewed his journals over the years, he noticed a pattern so striking it couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. Wherever he wrote appreciative observations, noting the grace of architecture, the kindness of inhabitants, or the abundance of nature, those places seemed to flourish in the months following his visits. Conversely, locations he criticized in his notes, focusing on flaws or shortcomings, mysteriously fell into decline. At first, he dismissed these occurrences as coincidence until his visit to twin merchant towns separated by a river. In the eastern town, he spent days writing about its vibrant energy and potential. In the western town, frustrated by a poor night's sleep, he filled chapters with complaints about its inadequacies. When he returned a season later, he found the eastern town's marketplace overflowing with prosperity, while the western town's stalls stood eerily empty. Yet both towns had identical resources, opportunities, and external conditions. The only difference was the quality of attention he had directed toward each. This revelation contains a metaphysical principle that quantum physics is only beginning to validate. Your attention functions like sunlight falling on the garden of your life. What you appreciate quite literally appreciates. It grows in value and expands in your experience. This isn't metaphorical. It's a causal relationship between consciousness and material reality. Justin tested this theory in a withered garden that gardeners had declared barren. Each morning, he would sit among the dry soil and write about the beauty and potential he perceived there. Not what was visibly present, but what he could envision beneath the surface. Within weeks, flowers pushed through soil that experts had abandoned, responding to the nourishment of his appreciative attention. I've witnessed this principle transform struggling businesses, stagnant investments, and troubled projects. In one remarkable case, a retail space that had cycled through 5 failed businesses in 3 years completely reversed its fortune when the new owner instituted a daily practice of appreciation, gathering her team each morning to acknowledge specific positive aspects of the location that previous owners had complained about. Behind the scenes of this phenomenon is a fundamental truth about the relationship between consciousness and material reality. The universe is fundamentally responsive to the quality of attention we direct toward it. Most people unconsciously water the weeds in their financial garden through constant focus on what's lacking, what's wrong, or what might go wrong, then wonder why those very aspects keep growing. The ancient practice for harnessing this principle begins by sitting quietly in your dwelling or workplace with a blank page. Instead of analyzing problems or strategizing solutions, write 7 specific appreciations about this space, focusing exclusively on positive potential, not current lacks. Read your observations aloud to the space itself, as if it were a living entity capable of hearing your recognition. The alchemical moment in this practice comes from returning daily for 7 consecutive days, finding new things to appreciate each time. This consistent redirection of attention creates a cumulative effect, literally reorganizing the energy field of your environment and magnetizing new possibilities that were always present but previously unactualized. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it works regardless of your current circumstances. You don't need to wait for conditions to improve before finding aspects to appreciate. The appreciation itself becomes the catalyst that transforms conditions from within. This completely inverts the conventional approach of waiting for circumstances to change before changing your perception. The journey toward mastering this principle involves developing what I call appreciation vision, the ability to perceive abundance, beauty, and potential where others see only lack. This isn't about denying challenges, but about consciously choosing where to direct the sunlight of your attention, knowing that whatever you focus on will inevitably grow. This understanding doesn't replace practical action, but rather ensures that your actions flow from a consciousness that magnetizes success rather than repels it. Justin didn't just appreciate the garden, he also tended it. But his physical efforts were multiplied exponentially by the consciousness he brought to them. If you've experienced how deliberately focusing on what's working in a situation seems to mysteriously expand those positive elements while reducing problems, share your insight by typing "appreciation alchemy" in the comments. These experiences weren't coincidences but demonstrations of your innate power to shape reality through the quality of your attention. Let me share a profound shift in understanding prosperity that completely inverts conventional wisdom about wealth creation. A revelation that comes from a temple guard named Michelle in the sacred complex of ancient Persepolis. This insight explains why some people and organizations magnetize extraordinary abundance while others struggle despite superior resources and strategies. Unlike other guards who watched the temple's golden treasures with hawkish eyes, Michelle found herself increasingly drawn to watch the faces of pilgrims who traveled from distant lands. Each day she noticed how visitors would enter with wonder in their eyes, only to have that light dim when confronted by stern guards focused solely on protecting the treasures. Something in her heart ached at this transformation. One morning, rather than standing rigid by the gold-laden altars, Michelle positioned herself near the temple entrance. Instead of scanning for thieves, she began greeting travel-weary pilgrims with a warm smile and gentle guidance. "Your presence honors these halls more than all the gold within them," she would say, helping elderly visitors navigate steep steps or showing young children where they could best view the sacred flames. She treated each person not as a potential threat to be watched, but as a living treasure carrying gifts far more precious than gold. What happened next reveals a fundamental principle of abundance that most wealth-building systems completely overlook. The temple overseer soon noticed that the donation bowls near where Michelle stood would mysteriously overflow, while other areas saw fewer offerings. Even more curious, not a single item had gone missing from her section, though she seemed barely to watch the treasures at all. "How do you guard the gold so well when your eyes are always on the people?" the puzzled overseer asked. Michelle's response contains a wisdom that could transform your entire approach to creating prosperity. "I've learned that when you protect people's peace, they naturally protect the temple's prosperity. The real treasure isn't in these vaults, it's in the light in their eyes." This revelation illuminates why some businesses, creators, and entrepreneurs seem to attract abundance effortlessly, while others struggle despite aggressive strategies. True abundance flows not from what we protect, but from who we serve. This principle operates across every domain, from business to investments, content creation to relationship building. I witnessed this transformation in my own journey when facing a critical decision point in my business. Revenue had plateaued, despite implementing cutting-edge marketing strategies and optimizing every aspect of operations. The breakthrough came when I shifted my entire focus from protecting and increasing profit margins to genuinely serving the humans on the other side of each transaction. This wasn't a superficial, customer-first approach, but a fundamental reorientation of consciousness, treating each person I encountered as if they carried hidden treasure far more valuable than any transaction. The impact on prosperity was immediate and remarkable. Opportunities, resources, and growth that had felt blocked began flowing with almost supernatural ease. Behind the scenes of this principle is a profound metaphysical truth. The universe responds to the underlying focus of your attention. Most wealth creation approaches center on accumulating and protecting resources for yourself, which energetically creates resistance in the very flow you're trying to enhance. When you shift to authentic service, genuinely protecting the peace and well-being of others, you align with the natural current of abundance rather than swimming against it. The ancient practice for embodying this wisdom begins by choosing a space you tend, whether that's a business, online platform, investment portfolio, or relationship. The alchemical shift happens when you consciously reorient your focus from objects to the people you serve. Greet each person, whether customer, audience member, or colleague, as if they carry hidden treasure waiting to be recognized. As you move through your day, find one small way to ease others' journeys or comfort that doesn't directly benefit you. This isn't strategic giving with expected return, but genuine care that seeks nothing in exchange. Then notice what naturally flows back without asking. The reciprocity that follows isn't transactional, but rather the natural movement of an energetic principle realigning around your shift in consciousness. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it bypasses the entire paradigm of scarcity that underlies most approaches to creating prosperity. Instead of seeing abundance as a limited resource to accumulate through strategy and effort, you recognize it as a natural flow that moves most freely through channels of authentic service. The journey toward mastering this principle involves ending each day by blessing those you've served, whether silently or explicitly. This isn't religious practice, but rather conscious recognition of the true source of abundance in your life. Like Michelle's temple section that became known as the Hall of Smiling Peace, your domain begins radiating a quality that naturally attracts prosperity. If you've experienced moments where genuinely focusing on serving others seemed to mysteriously unlock abundance that strategic self-focus couldn't achieve, share your story by typing "service prosperity" in the comments. These weren't coincidences, but glimpses of a fundamental principle that governs the deeper mechanics of abundance. Let me share a revelation about prosperity that completely transforms how we approach wealth creation. A principle that explains why some financial experts struggle while seeming amateurs sometimes flourish effortlessly. This insight comes from a remarkable prophet named Ryan in ancient Carthage, who possessed an extraordinary gift yet lived in peculiar poverty. Unlike other seers who read omens in birds or entrails, Ryan had the uncanny ability to predict exactly how market prices would shift. Through careful observation of patterns that most found mysterious, he could foretell when grain would soar in value or when purple dye would plummet in price. Merchants sought his counsel, offering handsome fees for his insights. Yet despite his profound understanding of wealth's movements, Ryan himself lived in striking poverty. Each morning, he would sit cross-legged at his worn wooden table, surrounded by intricate charts tracking the flow of commerce. His predictions proved flawless, yet his own purse remained empty, a paradox that puzzled even the wisest merchants who sought his guidance. This contradiction reveals a profound truth about abundance that most wealth-building systems completely overlook. Understanding prosperity's patterns matters infinitely less than becoming prosperity itself. You can study money's movements for a lifetime, mastering every technical aspect of finance, yet remain fundamentally separate from its flow. The transformation in Ryan's journey came through an encounter with a veiled mystic who paused at his table, watching him meticulously record price patterns. "You study the dance," she observed with quiet knowing, "but you refuse to join it." When Ryan expressed confusion, the mystic smiled. "Knowing how fish swim doesn't make you wet," she explained, taking a copper coin and beginning to spin it on his table. "See how it dances? Money isn't meant to be studied. It's meant to be danced with. You've mastered the mathematics of abundance while remaining separate from its music." This insight illuminates why some financial experts with impressive credentials struggle, while intuitive entrepreneurs sometimes create extraordinary wealth. The decisive factor isn't intellectual understanding, but energetic embodiment. Not what you know about prosperity, but whether you've become prosperity in motion. I witnessed this principle dramatically when working with two business partners, one who approached wealth creation through relentless analysis and strategic planning, the other who operated from an intuitive sense of flow. Despite the first partner's superior knowledge of market dynamics, it was the second whose decisions consistently led to breakthrough opportunities and exponential growth. Behind the scenes of this phenomenon is a fundamental metaphysical truth. Prosperity isn't something you pursue through external strategy, but something you embody through internal alignment. Most people remain permanently separated from abundance by the very analytical mind they're using to chase it. They position themselves as observers of wealth, rather than expressions of it. The ancient practice for transcending this limitation begins with a deceptively simple meditation. Sit quietly with a coin in your palm and close your eyes. Instead of analyzing the coin as an object, feel its desire to move, its inherent nature as energy in motion rather than static metal. This shift in perception begins dissolving the artificial boundary between you and the prosperity you seek. The alchemical moment in this practice comes when you imagine yourself as currency in motion, not metaphorically, but energetically becoming the very flow of abundance you've been studying from a distance. Experience the joy of moving freely, without resistance, circulating through the ecosystem of exchange with natural ease rather than anxious effort. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it directly addresses the consciousness that keeps most people separated from prosperity. You're not just shifting your thoughts about abundance, but your entire relationship with it, from observer to embodiment, from analyst to expression, from pursuer to manifestation. The journey toward mastering this principle involves noticing all the ways you might unconsciously position yourself outside the flow you're trying to enter. Where are you overthinking prosperity rather than becoming it? Where are you analyzing abundance rather than expressing it? The resolution of these patterns creates an immediate shift in your prosperity consciousness. This understanding doesn't invalidate financial knowledge, but rather places it in proper perspective. Ryan's charts and predictions remained valuable tools, but only after he learned to dance with the energy he had been merely studying. The integration created possibilities that neither approach could achieve alone. If you've experienced moments where intellectual understanding of prosperity principles seemed less effective than simply flowing with intuitive alignment, share your insight by typing "dancing with abundance" in the comments. These experiences weren't coincidences, but glimpses of the fundamental difference between knowing about prosperity and becoming prosperity itself. Now, let me reveal an insight about wealth that completely transforms our understanding of what money actually is. a perspective that illuminates why some people experience perpetual scarcity, while others seem to naturally attract abundance regardless of external circumstances. This revelation comes from an unusual oracle named Amy, who used 3 simple coins to test the consciousness of those seeking prosperity wisdom. Unlike other priestesses who delivered prophecies in wild trances, Amy would simply place 3 coins before seekers, 1 gold, 1 silver, 1 copper, and ask a single question: which contains the most trust? This peculiar test revealed everything about a person's relationship with abundance. Wealthy merchants invariably chose the gold, believing higher value meant greater trust. Practical traders selected the silver as a reasonable compromise. But occasionally, a seeker would sit in prolonged silence, studying not the coins themselves, but the space between them. After hours of contemplation, one such seeker finally spoke. They are the same. Each coin is simply crystallized trust, faith made solid between people who believe in shared value. Amy's eyes sparkled with recognition. And what of the space between them? She pressed further. That too is trust, the seeker replied, but still flowing, not yet crystallized. Like water that can become ice, trust can become coin, but its fluid form holds more power than its frozen one. This revelation illuminates a profound truth about prosperity that most financial systems completely overlook. Money is not a thing, but a relationship. It represents but one form trust takes when flowing between hearts that believe in each other. The coins themselves are merely the visible manifestation of an invisible current of faith that flows through all human exchanges. I experienced this transformation personally during a period when focusing on money itself created constant anxiety and limitation. The breakthrough came when I shifted my attention from the physical currency to the field of trust from which it emerges. This consciousness shift completely recalibrated my relationship with prosperity, opening channels of abundance that had seemed blocked when I was fixating on dollars and cents. Behind the scenes of this principle is a fundamental metaphysical reality. What we call wealth is actually a tangible expression of an intangible energy. Most people spend their lives chasing the frozen form while remaining disconnected from its flowing source. It's like pursuing ice cubes while ignoring the river from which they came. The journey toward mastering this principle involves a practice from an alchemist named Kevin, who discovered a formula for transforming scarcity into abundance far more valuable than turning lead into gold. His laboratory contained no bubbling crucibles or smoking furnaces, just a single clear crystal upon a wooden pedestal surrounded by circles of salt. When a visiting scholar asked where his instruments of transformation were, Kevin smiled and lifted the crystal. The only true instrument of transformation is consciousness itself, he explained. He demonstrated by placing a lead coin before them, then seating himself within the salt circles. As he closed his eyes in meditation, the crystal began pulsing with inner light. And remarkably, the lead coin started to shimmer, taking on a golden hue. The astonished scholar believed he was witnessing metallurgic transformation, but Kevin revealed a far more profound truth. The coin changed because I transformed the consciousness observing it. The metal merely reflected that shift. This illuminates why two people can use identical wealth strategies with completely different results. The decisive factor isn't the external technique, but the internal frequency from which you're operating. Prosperity follows vibration, not strategy. External abundance simply mirrors internal transformation. The ancient practice for elevating your prosperity frequency begins with consciously raising your energetic state through breath. Sitting within a circle of salt or light, place a coin before you as a focus point. Feel the current vibration of your consciousness, noticing any heaviness, constriction, or limitation. Then gradually elevate your inner frequency through conscious and breathing, allowing your energy field to become increasingly golden and expansive. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it addresses the causal level of prosperity rather than merely manipulating its effects. You're not trying to get more money. You're becoming the energetic equivalent of the abundance you seek to experience. This completely inverts conventional approaches that focus exclusively on external actions while ignoring the consciousness behind them. If you've experienced moments where your state of being seemed more important than your strategy in attracting prosperity, where trust and inner alignment created results that effort alone couldn't achieve, share your insight by typing vibrational wealth in the comments. These weren't coincidences, but demonstrations of the precise way consciousness shapes material reality from the inside out. Now, let me share a revolutionary insight about prosperity that completely transforms how we navigate through times of uncertainty and change, a perspective that explains why some people maintain their abundance through economic storms, while others are tossed about by every shift in circumstance. This revelation comes from a legendary captain named Rachel, who sailed the ancient Mediterranean with extraordinary success. Unlike other sailors who relied solely on weather patterns and visible landmarks, Rachel possessed an unusual method of navigation that seemed to defy nature itself. Her ship, the Azure Promise, would sail straight through storms that scattered entire merchant fleets, somehow finding passages of calm within chaos. More remarkably, she appeared to summon favorable winds at will, leading many to whisper that she had struck some mystical bargain with the gods. "The stars hold two maps," she would tell her bewildered crew on clear nights, pointing skyward. "One for where ships can go, and one for where prosperity flows." The wise navigator reads both. This wisdom illuminates why some individuals and organizations thrive regardless of economic conditions, while others struggle even during favorable times. Abundance has its own constellation, a set of fixed principles that govern prosperity independently of temporary circumstances. Those who learn to navigate by these eternal stars rather than the changing winds of circumstance experience a consistency in their abundance that seems almost supernatural to others. I witnessed this principle dramatically illustrated during the last economic downturn, when two business owners in the same industry faced identical external challenges. One constantly adjusted his strategy based on economic forecasts, news cycles, and market fears, essentially navigating by the changing winds. The other maintained unwavering alignment with timeless prosperity principles, making decisions based on deeper patterns rather than surface turbulence. Within 18 months, their paths had diverged completely, one barely surviving, the other actually expanding during the contraction. Behind the scenes of this phenomenon is a profound metaphysical truth. The universe operates through both temporary conditions and eternal laws. Most people navigate exclusively by conditions, the visible, changeable patterns of circumstance, while remaining unaware of the deeper, unchanging laws that actually govern prosperity's flow. Rachel demonstrated this principle during a devastating storm that threatened to destroy her ship and crew. She did something unprecedented, ordering all conventional navigation tools thrown overboard. "Captain, you'll doom us all," cried her first mate. But Rachel stood calmly at the helm, her eyes fixed on something others couldn't see. "Watch closely," she said, "for I navigate not by the winds of circumstance, but by the eternal star patterns of prosperity." As the crew watched in amazement, she began steering in seemingly random directions that somehow always led to pockets of absolute calm. By dawn, they had not only survived, but discovered a legendary trading port thought lost to time. This revelation opens the door to a profound transformation in how you relate to prosperity. Rather than constantly reacting to economic news, market shifts, or financial trends, you begin sensing the deeper currents, feeling for the pull of prosperity's constellation and letting your inner compass guide you through both calm and storm. The journey toward mastering this principle leads to an even more profound revelation, illuminated by an extraordinary temple guardian named Samantha, who protected not physical treasures, but the invisible gateway between scarcity and abundance consciousness. Her temple had no walls, only an archway of pure crystal that seemed to shimmer between dimensions. Those who passed through with awareness emerged transformed, their relationship with prosperity forever altered. Yet most walked through unseeing, wondering why wealth remained elusive. The gateway is always open, she would say, watching pilgrims approach, but few notice their crossing between worlds with every thought about abundance. Her most remarkable insight reveals the ultimate transformation in prosperity consciousness. You are not meant to seek wealth, but to become its keeper and guardian. This complete inversion of conventional understanding shifts your energy from pursuing prosperity as something external to embodying and guarding it as something you already are. When you pass through this gateway consciously, you no longer chase abundance as something to attain, but rather recognize yourself as a steward of the very flow you once sought. In this awareness, what you bless increases, what you appreciate multiplies, and what you give without grasping becomes your eternal companion. If you've experienced moments where following your inner compass rather than external conditions guided you to unexpected prosperity, or times when you shifted from seeking abundance to embodying it, share your insight by typing Guardian of Abundance in the comments. These weren't coincidences, but glimpses of your true relationship with the prosperity that has been awaiting your conscious recognition all along. As we come to the close of this journey through the ancient wisdom of abundance, I want to thank you for staying with me through these revelations. What you've discovered today isn't just information. It's a remembering of what your soul has always known about the true nature of prosperity. If these principles have resonated with something deep within you, it's not coincidence that brought you to this video, it's alignment. The very fact that you're still here means you're already vibrating at a frequency that attracts abundance. This book didn't find you by accident. You were energetically drawn to this wisdom because you're ready to embody it. I create these videos to share transformative insights that have profoundly changed my life and the lives of thousands who've applied them. If you'd like to continue this journey with me, gently tap that subscribe button below. Each week I share another piece of this ancient prosperity wisdom that's been deliberately hidden from mainstream understanding. If this message felt like it was speaking directly to your soul, I'd love to know by seeing you write, "This book found me at the perfect time," in the comments. Your share creates a ripple of abundance consciousness that extends far beyond what you might imagine. Leaving a like on this video helps more seekers discover this wisdom at exactly the right moment in their journey, just as you did. It's a simple gesture that creates alignment between those ready to receive and the knowledge they're seeking. There's a video right here that takes these principles even deeper, revealing the hidden connection between abundance consciousness and your energetic blueprint. Click and continue with me there as we explore how to permanently dissolve the invisible barriers that have been separating you from your natural state of prosperity. Until next time, remember, you are not meant to pursue abundance. You are meant to remember that you are abundance itself.